Week 5 in the NFL, we have your Underdog Fantasy picks. Code RW Picks if you're over there. Join up. Ryan, what are your go-to options here for Week 5 in the NFL?
Yeah, we're going to rebound after a tough week last week. The first few weeks of the season went well. Last week, a few bumps in the road. Get back on the horse here. My first picks are all from the same game, this Packers-Rams game. So the Packers have Christian Watson out, and they have Romeo Doubs, status uncertain due to personal reasons at the moment as of Friday. But either way, the numbers on Jayden Reed and Wicks look pretty low. Like Reed's number is 72.5. He's went over 130 twice already this season in games where Christian Watson played. And we saw Wicks step in last week and catch 2 touchdowns. He had 5 catches, but drew 13 targets, 78 yards. His number's only 49.5. I could see both those numbers being higher. So I like higher on both of those. And then on the other side, the Rams still have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua out. Jordan Whittington, who was a late round rookie, played 97% of the snaps last week, caught 6 passes, drew 8 targets. I mean, seems to have emerged as Stafford's sort of number one guy with Kupp and Nacua out. I mean, people thought it was going to be Demarcus Robinson, but Robinson's only he hasn't seen more than 4 targets in a game. So I like Whittington here. His numbers are 4.5 catches. I like higher than 4.5 catches and also higher than 47.5 yards. He was comfortably over both of those last weekend. Should be a good game script for the Rams as they're likely to be trailing. What about you? What do you give us a couple picks?
Jordan Whittington, former Texas teammates of Adonai Mitchell. I was actually looking at Matthew Stafford's over, but I just don't think they're going to be passing enough. It seemed I think it's sitting around the 220 mark. He's pretty much been that number the last 3 games, so I didn't want to go there. I'm looking at this Bengals Ravens game here, and Justice Hill's 15.5 for his rushing yards. I'm going higher than 15.5 rushing yards. I think it's a game where the Bengals rush defense, they lost DJ Reader, and it just really hasn't been that good this season. 15.5. He's only, he's getting 4 to 6 carries every game. So it's like, okay, well, if he gets a negative 5-yard carry, then you might be done. But if he gets 5 carries, you're just hoping he averages more than 3 yards a carry, and he's averaging more than 5 yards a carry on the season. So 15.5 yards, I don't think it's going to be too difficult there. And actually, on the other side of that, I kind of like Joe Burrow's higher than 258.5 passing yards. Yes, 258. I think it's a game where, the Bengals, you look at Burrow's stats against the Panthers, okay, 232 yards. How are we going to take the higher against the Ravens? But they're not going to be able to run the same. There's not. They ran all over the Panthers, so Burrow didn't have to pass as much. And it's just not going to be the same against this Ravens team. And the Ravens have shown that they will let teams, if they get ahead via, Justice Hill kind of a thing, that they will let up passing yards. And I think Burrow is a guy who can get those. Maybe it's not even garbage yards because I think it's going to be a close game. But I think that he can reach close to 300 yards now that, Chase and Higgins are healthy. His guys are healthy here, which they weren't earlier in the season, specifically that Patriots game. So 258, I don't think that number is that high in this matchup. Do you what are your thoughts there on Mr. Joe B?
Well, as a noted Joe Burrow guy, yeah, I love that. I didn't know you were gonna go with Burrow. I was happy to hear that. Yeah, he has 2 ways of getting there. They can play catch up or just go out and perform like they did the last 3 weeks. I mean, Burrow's been good 3 weeks in a row. And yeah, they're likely going to have to score points in this spot, back and forth game. You mentioned we saw the Gardner Minshew and the Raiders do it. I mean, Burrow's obviously capable. I got one more. DeAndre Swift. There was a lot of talk in Chicago about maybe Roschon Johnson getting some work. The running game had been so bad. Well, Swift exploded last week against the Rams. He had 93 yards on the ground. He caught 7 passes for 70-some yards. And his numbers look low this week. I think it's only 49.5 rush yards and 14.5 receiving yards. Like both of those, like the higher on both of those. In a plus matchup at home against Carolina. Good spot for Swift.
Yeah, I was just talking about the Bengals running backs, how they ran over the Panthers, and Kind of seems like Swift, that number is pretty low there. I mean, he was bad in the first few weeks of the season, but Panthers, bottom 5 rush defense, you could argue there. And then even receiving yards, I think he's been over 15 yards the last 3 games, had 7 receptions in the last game as well. It was one I was looking at as well. And I'll go to, so I'm wearing Colts here. So shout out to the Colts defense. I'm going Brian Thomas, the higher. He is at 54.5 receiving yards. He has 86 last week, 48, 94, 47. So he's been below that number a couple times, but not too worrisome. I mean, he's been right there. And the Colts have been kind of just gashed by outside receivers this season. A lot of 100 yards. I think was it Pickens you went last week? Pickens had like 111 yards against the Colts last week. Brian Thomas, I think as the season gets going, he's already kind of the number one of the top options there for Lawrence. So as the season gets going, I think he's going to be a little more consistent than he is than the off and on 40-yard, 90-yard kind of thing. But this is a great spot where the higher here, the higher lower is 54.5. But I think this is a spot where we might be looking at another 70, 80, 90 yards for Brian Thomas. So I like that one.
Colts games are one of the best spots in the league, just about every week. Their games average the second most play volume. They're the 3rd fastest team in the league. Like you said, we just saw Pickens do it. We saw Caleb Williams throw for like 400 against them the week before, and he hasn't been able to do that to anybody else. So, yeah, it's a good spot to target the Colts defense.
Yeah, target Lawrence, target Thomas, target whoever else.
Kirk.
Yeah. CK, Christian Kirk, but that's what we got here. Underdog Fantasy. Again, make sure to use code RWPicks if you're over there for the first time and get that 1,000 deposit and get up to 1,000 in bonus cash. But thank you, Ryan, and we'll see everyone next week for Week 6 in the NFL.
Good luck, everybody.